You're listening to the Sketchnote Army Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Rohde, the author of the Sketchnote Handbook and the Sketchnote Workbook. And this is the podcast where I chat with sketchnoters and visual thinkers and try to understand what makes them tick. Hey, are you looking for the ideal sketchbook for your sketchnoting practice? The Sketchnote Idea Book is the sketchbook designed for sketchnoters. Equipped with no bleed, no show-through paper, you can take almost any marker or pen you can throw at it. Get 10% off with code ARMY at airship.store. Hey everyone, it's Mike Rohde, and we are at the end of Season 13. I can't believe it. So here we are at the end of the season, and we, as tradition, we produce an All the Tips episode. In the All the Tips episode, the idea is to take all the tips from every episode, every guest, and merge them all together in one single episode where you get to hear all of their wisdom all gathered together with inspiring music in the background. And the idea is to encourage you as you go into the summertime and as we look forward to Season 14, that you would just take inspiration from this. If you're feeling bummed out on a certain day, this would be a great podcast episode to load up and just listen to other sketchnoters and the way that they encourage you to move forward and to do great work. So I hope you enjoy this episode, and I look forward to talking to you again for Season 14 in the fall of 2023. Until the next episode, talk to you soon. Katrine Vichek.
So I would say the first thing is pick a project you're really excited about. Like I always also say, for me, I do a lot of visualization of podcasts, live talks, reports, anything like that. And I need to be excited about the source material. Because I find, especially with freelancing, where you don't always kind of can influence what the topic is about or whatever, that really helps. Like I don't do any work anymore where I'm like, oh, this is really uninteresting and I don't want to be drawing this. And then also, if you're not working off source material, maybe do the travel sketch notes, like Eva Lotta Lam did, pick a passion project. I would say this was a huge learning curve for me, that I only enjoy sketchnoting when, the topic is right and what I draw about, really aligns with my interests and with my passions. And then the next one, it sounds so cliche, Mike, but I think it's so important. Don't compare yourself to others.
Yeah, definitely.
Full stop. I know there's comparison is the thief of joy or something, but I think it's really true. I have a really basic and minimalist style, and when I look at your work or at Nadine Rossa's work, I think she was on your podcast, or Franziska Schwarz, I'm like, oh my god, I have such a long way to go, and is my work even good enough? But the validation I got from the outside world tells me it is good enough, There are people who appreciate your minimalist style that's not super visually complex. It doesn't have all the really sophisticated doodles and everything. And I've come to accept that, I think. And also, I kind of try to stay in my line. I don't look at the work of others so much. If I do that, I set a certain time frame where I look at your work and then I get some inspiration, but then I leave it at that. And maybe I know it's harsh, but maybe that even means unfollowing a few people on social media and only looking at their profiles at, once a month or something. Because I think, or you learn basically to not compare yourself to others, but I think it takes some time to learn that. And then also sounds a bit cliche, but don't overcomplicate things. Don't overcomplicate sketchnoting. I think that's also in your book. A sketchnote doesn't have to be visually complex. And for me, for example, that means if I don't want to draw people, I don't draw people. Because I don't, maybe I don't like the style of it, or maybe I haven't put enough practice into it. Well, then I don't draw people. I don't have to do everything that the sketchnote community says that I need to do and how a sketchnote is supposed to look like, And then, because I have quite a minimalist style and I like it that way. And maybe at some point it gets more sophisticated, or maybe it doesn't. I don't know. Yeah, I would say those are my 3 things. Oh, and can I do a 4th one?
Yes, you can.
Don't overvalue talent. Like people always on LinkedIn, they always tell me you're so talented, and it gets me really angry because sketchnoting is basically you put in the work and the practice, and then you get better. It's like running or playing an instrument. It has nothing to do with talent. Like if you look at my early drawings, and when I started practicing with your book, it looked like didn't look great. So don't overvalue talent. There's no talent. Everybody can learn sketchnoting. I would print this on a t-shirt. So there you go.
I love it. 4 is great. And we love it when people give us extra ones. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, 4 is my lucky number. So
there we go. Filippo Sketchy Puccini.
So for sure, as I mentioned before, something I really like to do now, and I think that more of us should do that. Barter your services. You have you have something really interesting. You have a very unique set of skills. Just what do you like from potential clients or from your friends or from, you want to go to holiday somewhere, just reach out and say, what can I do for you? And you'd be surprised at all the good deals that might come your way in exchange of your drawings and your skills. So barter.
Love that.
Second one is ask your colleagues, connect, share and give. Like really, I've learned so much. When I've started, I connected first with the European visual practitioners, and then also with IFVP, and now we also have some meetings in Switzerland of visual practitioners in Switzerland that just to exchange and learn from each other at any given moment is so extremely valuable, because most of us we're working alone. So and you don't get real feedback, or you cannot grow much just from client work, because most clients will just say, oh, that's beautiful, and you might not even want it to be beautiful, you want it to be helpful. So getting constructive feedback, honest constructive feedback from peers, it's something that can really help you step up your work.
That's great. Like that.
And finally, my more maybe technical tip for graphic recording, prepare your titles ahead. Your title is, for me, is one of the most important things in your graphic recording. Is the one thing that should not, like, also with logos and maybe your signature, but the titles is the one thing that should not be done while other people are speaking. You should put thought into it, say, what do I want to communicate with this title? Because it's probably going to be the largest types, the largest font on your paper. And when people enter the room, they're going to see that as the first thing, and you want them to keep looking at it and not to just say, oh, what is it? Yeah, no, not interested, and turn their head away, because then, so really use your title as to hook the attention of the public, and to really give the framing and the meaning of your own recording. And the other controversial tip, if I may have an extra one, I know that there are some visual practitioners that might crucify me for saying that, but use Post-its. At least I'm very keen on the truthfulness of the information, of the accuracy, that there's no points really missed, that all the essential points under the recording. And you're always a bit in a delay in recording compared to somebody speaking. So Post-its have been a lifesaver for me. Then just pick it up, put them in order, because it even allows you a further selection level. Once you have 4 or 5 Post-its, it's like, maybe not all of that is necessary, or, oh, wow, look, this is the flow that I need to follow. So, I don't know, I think the Post-its are a little bit of a secret weapon to have complete and relevant graphic recordings.
In some ways, that's sort of like a buffer capture, right? So you're trying to capture things quickly. It doesn't have to be beautiful, but you can capture that idea. I sort of talk about that in sketchnoting. I call that putting a stake in the ground. So if you're working on a page, like maybe you start the section and then you just guess how much space it will take. You could use a Post-it note there, I suppose, too, a little one, put it in. But basically leave the space and come back to it, right? And just enough so you can fill it. So I like that, even if it's controversial. I think it's just, it's funny, like people will come to me and say, well, this isn't sketchnote. It's like, why not? Like using references, using Post-it notes, like your goal is to communicate ideas and get those ideas captured. Like, how you do it, I don't care. Like, if it doesn't look beautiful or it's not sanctioned or whatever, who cares, right? The goal is not for me to do it exactly as someone else told me to. The goal is, if you can come up with a way to deliver that message, then you win, right? That should be really the ultimate goal, is to, like you said, not people looking at it, oh, and that I don't care about it, or that it looks beautiful, but like, does it capture what we're talking about? Does it move us forward? Does it help us to remember so that we don't forget what we talked about, and then it pushes us ahead? That's really the goal of all the stuff we're doing, right? We're communicating visual ideas.
Yeah, that's the bottom line is, does it help? Am I doing a work that is helpful? Like, I'm usually paid for it, so I want to give the maximum added value to my client, and I guess that whatever means help you to capture the most and to be the most helpful to your client, that should be used.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm very pragmatic, I guess is the right word. So if it works for you, then you should go with it.
Yeah. And I think similarly, another thing I've been reading in a lot of books is about, you put down the pen the moment the person stops speaking, and I feel like you can do that, but I don't think it helps in really having a complete and helpful recording, because maybe the last session they're like, oh, hey, let's collect all the next step, let's have a quick popcorn brainstorming session, and I'm going to come up with a lot of information which might all be relevant, and you still want to take the time to actually write it down completely, because and maybe take 15, 20, 30 minutes longer after the end, just communicate it clearly to the client before, and but if that helps, then why not also take a little bit of time longer? And I'm not saying then finish it at home in the next few days. No, right. Just take a little slot of time afterwards that agreed upon beforehand with the client to actually get the time to finish thing, and not just plot down something. If it's something very relevant, you want to give it the space and the space that it deserves.
I mean, when I do sketchnotes, I try to do most of the work in the moment, right? But I always reserve at least 15 minutes to look for typos and make sure that things make sense. And like, if I did that staking technique where I started to capture and I didn't finish, like, to make sure I fill it in, right? So to plan in a little bit of time at the end, I would think is a normal process for graphic recording too, right? Just to check your work, make sure that things are, I need to cross that T or dot that I. That's something that I'll get caught with sometimes. So I think it's important to sort of build in, not just the minute you stop, you're done. Like, well, you can come back and fix things, or so. I would think that that's a pretty standard thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
I would hope so. Eric Baky.
I'd say first, what problem are you really trying to solve? Like, you're hung up on this thing. Like, you're trying. What are you really trying to solve? And who are you trying to solve it for? Are you trying to solve it for yourself? Because sketchnotes are a fantastic way to solve for yourself, and also get some gratification and edification from other people who think your work is cool. And there's a whole community for people who just do sketchnotes, and that's an essential. As someone who's gone through several apprenticeships, and it's essential to get those basics down 100%. So if you're what are you trying to solve? If it's skills that you need to get, just do some sketchnotes, and it's for yourself. And if you're trying to solve for somebody else, okay, so is this a graphic recording kind of question? Is this a visual facilitation kind of question? And then what is the value of solving that problem? Like, is it for you, is it to just get past the mental block of that I'm not good enough to do this thing? Well, yes, you are. Like, there's so many uses for visual thinking, and how you can increase your skills and share them with somebody else, and because the only way to get better at drawing is to push the ugliness out of your pencil on that piece of paper. Like, there's no way, no matter how many books I read or courses I take, like I continue to learn and continue to get better. There's so people are so good at this stuff, and even after people tell me oh, you're so talented. It's still, I'm never satisfied like with how much further I could push this. So the tip number one is like, what problem are you trying to solve? Is it for you or for someone else? And what is the value of solving that problem? So you get off your butt and actually solve it. Like you need consequences for it not being solved, or a reward for solving it. So what is the problem? Who's it for? And what is the value of doing this work? And you need to get that clear before you're going to get past your funk. So that'd be my first tip. Second is, so where are you right now and where do you want to go? If you want to build Sketchnotes onto and become a professional with this thing, you can. There's also people who I would argue I'm a better illustrator or arguably they've got incredible businesses doing this thing. Mm-hmm. So it has very little to do with your physical skill set and more about who is the community that you're surrounding yourself with. If you're just trying to be just educate yourself on a specific topic, maybe you're struggling with math or physics or something like that, and you can use visual thinking and sketchnoting to solve for that, or there's tons of business and personal development advice out there. There's tons of podcasts to distill it down. There's it's a whole problem in and of itself. There's this proliferation of advice out there. Right. There's too much of it. It's this massive fire hose, and people have made incredible Twitters and Instagram pages and make incredible illustrations and sketch notes of just distilling down all the stuff. And maybe you'll also see that some of it is bullcrap by drawing it out and seeing, wow, this actually doesn't, when I see it in front of me, this
makes sense.
It sounded really good, but so that would be, so where are you now and where do you want to go with this? Do you want to do this professionally? Me, I mean, I've got hired by this incredible company that's an aerospace defense company that's unbelievable, and I'm just someone who's like a reformed construction worker turned cartoonist. Like, it'd be really hard to even put your finger on exactly how I got here. It's not something that I intentionally woke up and said I'm going to do this thing. It was something that pulled on, like, once I saw your work, once I saw there was a whole community, how do I get better at this skill so that I can be undeniable that I can solve these problems and work for a company that is on a mission that I actually care about. Cool. And my third and final one would just be to be useful, resourceful, and worth knowing in your 5 Mile Famous world. Because it's not about being the best artist or even being the best listener. It's not about being the best. It's being useful with the talents that you've been given, the resources that you've got. Resourceful people use your resources and be useful to the people who are around you, and being worth knowing, I feel, is a higher calling than being well known. So that's really what I aspired to do. So I'm really I guess I'm giving myself my own advice here, but that's my third tip is, yeah.
Like great. Those are 3 great tips. I love all 3. Maria Coryell-Martin.
Yeah, I love that question because I'm a real like process person. And I already told you one of my mantras, which is practice, not perfection. And another one of my mantras is trust in process. So no matter how much painting I've done, I still sometimes look at a sketchbook or start a painting and I'm like, where do I begin? And I kind of need to remember, warm up again. And so I love having my little process to get started. And so, one thing I love in just all parts of my life, but I love timers. I am so hooked on does this feel hard to do? Set a timer. And in workshops with people of all ages, I love going through gesture sketches, which are really fast, energetic little sketches to get the big idea of something, and using a timer. And we'll often start with like a 10-second sketch, go to a 30-second sketch, a minute, and even up to 2 minutes. And it's sort of fascinating to see what can be done in just a couple minutes. And let's see if I have a little example here of some gestures. Here's some little just tiny walrus gestures done with one project.
Oh yeah.
So I'd recommend as one tip is, if you're having feeling like you need a little prompt to get started, is set yourself a timer. I'm going to do this for 3 minutes, just to get yourself to sit down and get started. And another way to think about it that a scientist shared with me is the activation energy to get like a chemical reaction started is bigger often than like continuing a process. And so I think that timer can help us have that boost to sort of get going. And then once we are in the groove, it can be easier to stay, in the flow. So yeah, my first tip, Mike, is use a timer and set yourself a very small amount of time to do something. And now there's the question of what to do, and that will be my next tip. Another tip I would suggest is if you're sitting somewhere and feeling like I need a little boost for getting going here, would be just to play with painting the colors you see and not worry about composition. You might do this as little circles. An artist friend of ours with Art Toolkit lately has just been doing some really delightful little circle studies, sort of in this vein of creating, a little wet circle on your paper, dropping a little bit of one color in and adding a little bit of another color. So they could be more formal, or you can see this little splotch of color on the other side of just seeing how colors might mix together what you see in front of you. But take away the pressure of I have to like paint something or do something more, I'm gonna put this in quotes, official or real feeling. Just give yourself the opportunity to play with color, what you see, and don't worry about composition. And actually, there's a fun thing, which I think we put on our website. I can send you a link to this, Mike, of if you do this, of just mixing the colors you see, sometimes you can go on top and just do a light pen drawing on top of that as well. And I can send you a link to a little prompt with that. Okay. And I think my last tip would be going the other direction from just looking at color to just starting with words. And I think a lot about sense of place, and palette of place is something as an artist I pay attention to. You're building a vocabulary when you're outside of the colors you see, of the environment, of the stories you learn. And if it feels too much to start with the sort of drawing side of things, let yourself do some writing. And I often think about, the W's of who, what, where, when, why. When I write, I think it can be really fun to play, something you do so well. You might play with your writing. This is a little sort of an exercise I did on one program where we were imagining the ocean. So let your words sort of be fun, where you might play with how you're writing. And then around those writings, you might then add in, little tiny thumbnail sketches or little icons, and then be able to add some color to the page. So I think with all of these tips, out of those three, it's about just simplifying your approach, setting a timer, putting a little limit on kind of your time and expectations, taking away composition, just focusing on color, and then just paying attention to the world and just letting yourself start with notes, just to start that attention.
Those are great. Those are three great tips. And I almost want to say practice, not perfection, and trust in the process are almost like free extra tips. I don't know. 0.1 and 0.2, I don't know, whatever. So also good things to remember. Julia Knuppa.
It's a very nice question, and I think I'm a person who needs a boost now because I start to work with absolutely new audience, for me, English-speaking audience. So I will give these tips, first of all, to myself, and I hope that they will be useful to someone else. So the first principle I always use when I try to do something new, when I need to learn something, is like fake it till you make it, but I change it a little bit, like I do it as a game. You can pretend being a master in this and doing this, or you can think that you are a YouTube vlogger and you are telling to your audience how to do this, or teach like 5-year kid how to do this. So I kind of try to pretend that I already know how to do this, because I find it much easier to advise to someone than to do it myself. So I pretend that I'm just advising. So fake it till you make it is the first principle.
Okay.
Yeah. And the second one is about work-life balance. So I never understood it earlier, but now I realize how it is important to observe beauty and consume quality content. So I really recommend to get inspiration from everywhere, from colleagues, from traveling, to follow people from different industries. For example, I found a lot of inspiration in design industry, psychology, coaching, facilitation. So just continue learning every day and follow good people on Instagram, let's say. This is the second tip. And the third one is a very important gift of allowing yourself to be yourself. What I mean by this, that, for example, I'm a very slow thinker and slow doer. So I give myself permission to do it in my own pace and with my own style. Even sometimes I think, oh my gosh, it's so ugly, why people at all should like this or should pay for this even. But I know now that authenticity is the most important value in our days nowadays. So authenticity is very important. So please allow yourself to be yourself and be very kind to yourself. It's very easy to say, but it's very difficult to do. But it's a moment where you are healing your inner child and be just very kind to what you're doing. And talk to yourself as a caring parent and support yourself. Like, it's wonderful what you can reach when you're kind to yourself.
This episode of the Sketchnote Army Podcast is brought to you by Concepts, a perfect tool for sketchnoting, available on iOS, Windows, and Android. Concepts' vector-based drawing feature gives you the power to adjust your drawings anytime you like. You can nudge the curve of a line, swap out one brush for another, or change the stroke thickness and color at any stage of your drawing, saving hours and hours of rework. Vectors provide clean, crisp, high-resolution output for your sketchnotes at any size you need, large or small. Never worry about fuzzy sketchnotes again. Concepts is a powerful, flexible tool that's ideal for sketchnoting. Search Concepts in your favorite app store to give it a try. Tai Hatch.
Yeah, so the first tip, and I think this is a pretty important one. I've had a lot of people, when they find out I'm a designer, they say, oh, I'm not artistic. And to me, it's not about being artistic, it's about being creative. And I like to tell people, everyone's creative in their own way. How you express your creativity is going to be different than how I express my creativity. My creativity comes out in the form of sketchnotes and, these random headshots headshot illustrations that I do. Your creativity may be that you are a fantastic accountant and you can come up with really great ways to make things better and more efficient, right? Everybody, other people may just be fantastic cooks or bakers, right? Everybody expresses their creativity differently. And it's not about being artistic, it's about expressing yourself in the work that you do. And so, I think it's perfectly okay to admire somebody's work and say, oh, that's fantastic, and be a fan of it, but also not beat yourself up like, oh, I'm not that good at it because I can't draw like, Mike Rohde and illustrate all these cool books, right? But, I can draw my own thing and I can be happy with it. And so I think my first one would be, everybody's creative in their own way, and that's okay. Do it, and so with that, it goes to what I would say is my second tip is, enjoy what you do. That it's really hard, I think, especially today, for people to feel like, I can enjoy this. I think you need to give yourself permission to enjoy those things that you find pleasing. And, because there's so many things out there today, it's easy to get overwhelmed with them. And I think it's okay to be nerdy and geeky, or really into sports, or you can like a range of different things. If my kids were to tell you what I like, they would say this. They'd rattle off a list of dozens of things, because I don't think it's good to limit yourself to liking just one thing. You can like a range of different things, and that's okay. So that would be my second one. The third one is there's this great quote from Ira Glass. You've probably heard this. You can find a YouTube video on it somewhere, but he's talking about the work that you want to do. When everybody has a particular taste and style in their head that they imagine, but then when you try and do it, it doesn't meet those mental expectations.
Yeah.
And but you can get there by working at it. And I really think that everybody's capable of doing really great stuff. But you need to work to get to that point. And I think that's, it's don't give up, but, do, and that's the whole, and I think follow your passion is really bad advice, but I think do what you enjoy, because it may be that you may not enjoy your job, right? Which is providing for you and maybe your family. But if there's something outside of that, that helps, that brings you joy, that you enjoy doing, do that in a way that helps you be happy. And over time, what you do with that will match what you see in your head. And there may be opportunities that come up as a result of doing that. And because you never know, it's opportunity. I forget who said this quote, right? Opportunity is often masked as hard work, right? If you're not doing the work to prepare for the thing that you want to do, when that opportunity comes, you're going to be ill prepared to do that thing that you want to do. And so it's important to do the things that you feel are important, that you love. And you will have an opportunity at some point, right? The timing is really important. And then I'll do a fourth one, because this one I feel, and I've mentioned a little bit, you need to set boundaries on what you do. You need to be able to say, this is what's important to me, and these other things aren't so important. And so when it comes down to it, I won't be doing this, or this, because it conflicts with my more important thing. For me personally, my most important thing is my family, and everything that I do. I love design. I find it an extremely fulfilling, rewarding career. But it's a means to be able to provide for my family and make sure that they're taken care of. And I think that a lot of people are like, this is my hustle, this is my thing, right? And I think if you put so much of yourself into that you identify that with that, and if that thing goes away, where are you left?
Yeah.
And so what are those, set the boundaries for the things that are really important to you in your life that are not work related, because I can guarantee you everybody has something that's very important to them that's not work related. Set those boundaries, talk about those boundaries, and live your life in a way that reflects your priorities, because as you do that, people will see that, they will understand that, they'll respect that. And as you do those things and you express yourself through whatever creative means you have, you will gain those opportunities to be able to do those things, and you'll lead a more fulfilling life. And you're happy with it. Right? You won't be living with regrets if you do those things.
Maushi Amwaku.
Yeah. I would say one of my daily practices for Sketchnotes is that I sketchnote sermons online.
Mm-hmm.
There's a church that does like a daily devotional, which is like 15 minutes long. Mm-hmm. So I don't do it first thing in the morning because I'm not a morning person. I do it later on in the evening. But I find that those sketchnotes are more real because nobody sees them except me.
Yeah.
And I've moved from single sheets of paper to a notebook for that. So I have a whole notebook full of them. And what I like about them is they're just themselves. I have not tried to make anything beautiful. I just quickly got that information down. So yeah, try and, even if you go digital, keep drawing by hand.
Maybe that's your first tip, since we're now sort of heading into the tips department.
Oh yeah.
And I guess I should frame it. I always frame this. Probably regular listeners like you will have heard this a million times, but give us 3 tips that you would say to someone who feels stuck, someone who feels they're on a plateau, just these little inspiration to kind of break out of maybe a rut. And I think if you want to go further in this, what you've talked about, go back to drawing by hand. This could be your first tip, I think.
Okay, I have many tips, and it's hard to whittle it down to 3, so I might give a few more. Is that all right?
That's fine, yeah, please.
Okay, first one is don't overthink it. Just do it. Just do it. I try to talk myself out of it when I was doing it at work, but I have to say, when I did it, what a sigh of relief. I really enjoyed myself, even though I was getting paid for it. I was like, wow, this is fun. So just do it. That's the first tip.
Okay.
If you can't do something, don't worry. Find another way. Be open to trying something different. And if you're struggling with your sketchnote, listen to the podcast. Listen to the different interviews with different sketchnoters. Find out how they're using it. Especially make note of their tips. What are they doing? And just try it. Next one is share your work. It doesn't, I am not online at present, but I will be. So share it at work, share it with friends, or even just sketchnote in a diary or something. But yeah, share it with other people. Experiment, especially with the layout of the sketchnote. Find what works for you. Actually, this is way more than 3. I'm going to give you a few more.
Okay, go for it.
Collaborate with your colleagues. That is golden. Collaborate with your colleagues, because then you get to make really meaningful connections with your colleagues. I'm now working with people that I wouldn't have an opportunity to work with, or our paths may not have crossed, but Sketchnotes has kind of opened the door for that. So collaborate. Ask for feedback, another golden one, because that is how you're going to improve. Because if I had sketchnoted and sketchnoted and sketchnoted and nobody saw it, how could I improve? I might have improved, but maybe a lot slower. So definitely ask for feedback and tell someone your goal. If this is something that you want to start doing, share that with someone, because what really helped me, what was so pivotal, was that teacher. He encouraged me, because my very first sketchnote, I have it in the classroom that I did. It's not wonderful, and he just, I thought he was going to laugh, but he just encouraged me, and that kind of helped me to be accountable, because I've told people this is something that I want to do. So be intentional and tell people about it. You're more likely, if it's a New Year's resolution, say, you're more likely to keep it if you've told people you're going to do it. So yeah, I'll give you a bonus tip. Don't give up. Be patient. Be patient, because when you sketchnote, say, for example, at work, people may not understand what you're doing at first. They might think it's a bit strange. They might wonder why you're doing it. They might actually tell you to stop doing it. Nobody told me to stop doing it, but just say, somebody might. Don't let that determine whether you do it or not. Keep going. Do not get discouraged. Just do it.
Edmund Grupo.
Starting with sketchnotes, there was always the question how to find personal motivation, going on, improving your skills and so on. And one of the motivation, as I showed you, are books. I love it to learn from books. But what is even better, learning from other people. And with my company, where this self-organized learning groups were growing up, I learned this self-organized learning groups are the best to improve yourself. One of your podcasts Mike, there's a team about Learn OS. They had a 12-week journey, different stuff. There's also a learning journey for Sketchnotes, and you have self-organized meetings every week, and having a Zoom meeting or so, sharing a Miro board or whatever, and it's a little bit like there are some examples, some exercises you can do together, what you can do as a homework for the next meeting, and so, and that's the way I like to learn. It's better than sitting with a blank sheet of paper at home and so, and reading the book and struggling and so. And
that, by the way, was for those listening, is season 8. It was an episode with Carl Damke and Raffaellina Rossetti, I believe.
Rossetti, yeah. Raffaellina Rossetti is her name, yeah.
You can learn about the that movement there in the podcast.
Yeah, and there's a link to the internet also where the sketchnoting guide is and so, and it's amazing stuff. And getting the right people for the sketchnoting circle, that's my next advice.
Okay.
Typically, they are distributed around the world. That's not your neighbor, the sketchnoter, or the neighbor on the other side of the street. They're somewhere in this internet universe. Yeah. And some years ago, I found this Sketchnote Army Slack platform you established, Mike. And there's one folder with announcement of LearnOS sketchnoting groups. And it's self-organized to find others they are interested to have on Friday afternoon, 5 o'clock or so. The next 12 weeks we want to join the sketchnoting journey. And they are from different countries, different professions, different skills in drawing. That's not only the beginners or the specialists. It's like this schools in former times, they are the small and the older, the grown-up children, and they help each other.
Yeah, the one-room schoolhouse, we would say, in the United States back in the pioneer days.
This one-room schoolhouse you have in this Slack rooms, you find all this people, and it's this mindset, sharing things, learning together, and so you would never find them in real life.
Yeah, that's 2 points. Yeah, that's number 2. Yeah,
2 points, and the last one I want to repeat. Zettelkasten is my second brain. Zettelkasten, say it's also your second brain. You have a lot of experience in note-taking, different tools, but looking at this concept to get a step higher in efficiency, in effective note-taking, and making things easier than they are.
Natalie Taylor.
So I think, and I'm not sure if I've got 4 or not.
Or you can do more than 3 if you wish. That's fine.
I suddenly thought of loads of tips. So the first thing I would say, in line with, I'm not saying everyone needs an iPad Pro, but just kind of investing in what you love. So if you love Sketchnote, and it is kind of investing, and that might be in time or or courses. So that's really helped me, is just dedicating a bit of time and sometimes money to get a really good course, and it can really elevate your Sketchnotes to next level, or just get you back into it again. Often the courses are kind of collaborative, so you meet different people as well, which is helpful, and learn from others. So that's one thing I would say. But then equally, as much as it's kind of invest and improve, I wanted to say kind of recognise what your strengths are. So for some people they might be held back because there's the comparison thing, like what we were discussing earlier, and you see some sketchnotes that are very visual and these amazing illustrations that I love looking at,
and I've had to reframe that because I've had sometimes like moments of lacks of confidence, thinking, well, mine are quite wordy, I'm never going to be a natural illustrator, and I've had to kind of think, well, my strength might be more in the sense of listening to a podcast and picking out the key points, and that's something that I do in my professional role as marketing manager. Is I might have to take an academic paper and try and present it in a nice way. And that's something that I've had to think is, well, what are my strengths? I would say to people, focus on your strengths as well as try and improve your weaknesses, because everyone's sketch notes are different.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I love that one.
Thank you. And then another tip is to share your work. So I know it's not for everyone, but if you are sometimes getting stuck in a rut, it can help to share your work and break that barrier. Because I kind of kept my sketch notes secret for years, the ones that I did on mental health and things. Some of them that I've shared I did maybe 4 years ago and just didn't post, but that can really help get your work out there and get feedback, and also if you're sharing them on social media, it helps to connect you with people.
I suppose you could even frame that as maybe sharing doesn't have to be with the world, but maybe it's a small group, right? There's some chat or something where you can share that work. That's considered sharing, right? If it's to 10 of your best friends, right? You're still announcing to your friends, and they can give you feedback. So
exactly, and that's actually what I did first. I just started sending them during COVID. I'd send them in like WhatsApp group chats, and people would be like, oh wow, how have you not shared these before? So it kind of like dipping your toes in at first. You go to the friendly audience first, because as, social media cannot always be friendly, right? So no, exactly. That's very true. And then another one is just to write down your ideas. So sometimes I find if you're out and about and you're out in nature, or you're away for the weekend, I think you sometimes get inspiration for sketch notes, but if you don't write them down or keep them in I've got Google Keeps, I'll just kind of keep a little ideas list and just throw them in there, and it means that when I am sat at home with my sketchbook or some time and my iPad Pro, I can actually bring that idea to life rather than thinking, what was that again? So that's been really helpful.
Some kind of reference, right? Some kind of a spark. That's
exactly. And then I don't know whether I'm on to 5th tip now. I'm not sure.
I'll count them later.
But one is just kind of get involved with the community as well. I think that's a tip that I would recommend. There's been a few that I've been involved with lately, kind of monthly hangouts and your layouts workshop, and so I think that's just really helpful. And again, it's learning from people. You might get tips that you've not thought of that might take 10 minutes. I think one of your previous guests, I think it was Reverend Geek, said he had like a 30-day challenge where he would just sketch note a word for 30 days, but sometimes you get those ideas from other people and communities that you're part of.
Yeah, and we have if you want an easy one, it's Sketchnote Army has a Slack channel you can join.
Oh, really?
There is every day there's someone in one of the channels who posts a prompt, and you can be challenged to draw it, and I think they challenge you to draw it in 30 seconds or something, so it builds your icon, your thinking skills, right? So we have that channel. There's also probably the other benefit of that channel is any kind of events that happen. Lai Chi Chu, who's one of the members, she's like a hawk. She finds every cool event and she publishes it in the events announcements channel. So you'll find out about workshops, or like the Visual Jam will post in there. So you get a sense of like what's coming, which is great.
Oh, brilliant! That sounds great. Yeah, I'd love to join that. Thank you.
So if you go to sketchnotearmy.com, I think the /Slack should take you to the page, and you can sign up for free. It's all free.
I'm just writing that down.
We don't save any of the back channel, because we're just doing the free one, but it's more spur of the moment, the interaction between people in the community, which is pretty cool. So yeah, anybody that's listening, including Natalie, are welcome to sign up and hang out in there. There's a really cool bunch of people in there. So that could be, if your public sharing could be in the Slack channel, right, with friendly sketchnoters who will give you encouragement, which, we aim to have our community be an encouraging community. So I think that's a good place to start if you wanted to follow that tip that Natalie just gave. The Sketchnote Army Podcast was created by me, Mike Rohde, and brought to you by Rohdesign Studios. It's produced and edited by Alec Polianis of Amp Creative Studios. The theme music was created by John Schiedermeyer. To support the creation of this show, I invite you to buy one of my books, the Sketchnote Handbook or the Sketchnote Workbook. You can find the books on Amazon or go to peachpit.com and use the code ROHDE40 for 40% off. Please share this podcast with other visual thinking friends, and be sure to leave a nice rating on iTunes or your favorite podcast listening app so others can find the show.